Have you ever wondered what would happen if Luke Skywalker had fought against a surviving Mace Windu? Today, we are going to explore the galaxy far, far away to discover what would happen if some of the major events from the universe were altered. What if Luke Skywalker was raised by his father, Anakin? How about if Luke had discovered the Sith Eternal on Exegol? We will explore all these questions and more as we ponder what if. What if Luke Skywalker dueled Mace Windu, who survived Order 66? The war was over. The Emperor was dead. The Sith were defeated. But the galaxy was still haunted by ghosts of the past. Luke Skywalker had spent the years following the Battle of Endor, searching for lost Jedi knowledge, scouring the ruins of the Republic that had crumbled long before his time. The Jedi Order had once stretched across the stars, but now only fragments remained. Rumours were all he had to follow. Some whispered of ancient temples buried in the Outer Rim. Others spoke of lost holocrons, forgotten wisdom. But one rumour, more chilling than the rest, found him on the lawless world of Taris. "There's something in the mountains, Jedi." The old smuggler took a sip of his drink, glancing around the cantina as if afraid to speak too loudly. A force wheeler. Powerful. Dangerous. The kind you don't go looking for unless you've got a death wish. Luke leaned forward. "Sit?" The smuggler hesitated. "No, not like them. He's different. Some say he was a Jedi once. But if that's true, something, or someone, broke him. He's been out there for decades, slaughtering anyone who gets too close." Luke felt the Force stir at those words. A presence, faint, but wounded, filled with rage. A Jedi? If there was even a chance, he had to find out the truth. He finished his drink, tossed a few credits onto the table, and left without another word. The mountains awaited him. The mountains of Taris were a graveyard of old wars, ruined bunkers, shattered durasteel, and the skeletal remains of long-forgotten battles. The air was thick with the scent of damp stone and burning fuel from wrecked speeders long abandoned. Luke's X-Wing had touched down on a plateau just beyond the ruined city. He'd left R2 behind, not wanting to draw attention. The Force pulsed around him like a living thing. Something was here. Something powerful. He moved cautiously through the fog-choked valley, hand resting lightly on his lightsaber hilt. The deeper he went, the heavier the air became. The light seemed to dim, swallowed by the oppressive weight of something unseen. Then he saw it. An encampment, barely more than a ruin. Broken durasteel walls, scorched stone, and the remains of what might once have been a Jedi starfighter, its hull rusted with age. Fires burned in makeshift braziers, their light casting long, flickering shadows. Bones, some human, some not, were scattered across the rocky ground. A graveyard. Luke took a slow breath and stepped forward. He barely had time to react. A lightsaber ignited in the darkness, a blade of deep, amethyst violet. From the shadows, a figure launched forward with the speed of a predator. Luke's instincts took over. He ignited his own saber, just in time to catch the strike. A brutal, hammering blow that nearly sent him to his knees. Sparks erupted as the sabers locked, the violet blade pressing hard against Luke's green one. Through the flickering firelight, he saw his attacker clearly. A man, scarred, aged. One eye burned white with blindness. His robes were tattered, his face lined with years of suffering. Luke's breath caught in his throat. Mace Windu. The Jedi Master's face twisted in rage. You have come to die, Skywalker. Mace Windu's assault was nothing Luke had ever faced. The old master fought with a ferocity that defied his age, his violet blade carving through the darkness in blinding arcs. Luke barely had time to react. His training under Yoda had prepared him for many things, but this was Storm incarnate, a warrior whose very essence was combat. Their blades clashed again and again, green and violet lightning crackling in the night. Sparks erupted as Luke barely deflected a strike aimed at his throat. He staggered back, shifting into a defensive stance, trying to create distance. Master Windu, stop! Luke shouted, but there was no recognition in Windu's face, only rage. You stole everything, the old Jedi roared, striking with terrifying force. You betrayed us all! Luke realized in horror that Windu thought he was his father, Anakin Skywalker. The years had broken him, left him a shattered remnant of the warrior he had once been. Luke gritted his teeth as Windu pressed the attack, his form relentless, merciless. He moved with deadly precision, his technique refined even after decades in exile. The way he used Vapad was terrifying. Master, please! A strike nearly took Luke's arm off. He twisted away at the last second, his robes seared by the edge of the violet blade. Windu's form never faltered. You don't get to beg for mercy. Luke had no choice. He stopped retreating. He fought back. The shift was immediate. Luke countered, moving with speed and fluidity, his lightsaber guiding him like an extension of his will. He called upon the Force to enhance his movements, to predict Windu's next strikes. He blocked a downward slash, pivoted, and lashed out with a Force push, a blast of invisible energy that sent Windu staggering back. It was only for a second, but it was enough. For the first time, Windu hesitated. His face contorted in confusion as he stared at Luke through the haze of his own fury. Luke's chest heaved. I am not Anakin Skywalker. Windu blinked. His grip on his lightsaber faltered for a brief moment. Luke lowered his blade slightly, extending a hand. I am his son. A flicker of something, recognition, pain, regret, crossed Windu's scarred face. Then, his rage returned. With a roar, he lunged again. Luke barely had time to react. Windu's assault was a tempest of power, his strikes faster than anything Luke had ever faced before. The green blade of his lightsaber flashed desperately to meet each attack, but Windu fought like a man possessed. This wasn't just a duel, it was vengeance. Every strike carried the weight of decades of hatred, suffering, and grief. Luke's arm shook from the force of each impact. His boots slid across the dirt, his back slamming against a jagged rock. Windu's amethyst blade came down with a brutal overhead strike, Luke barely twisting out of the way, rolling as the rock burst into molten shards where he had just been standing. Windu advanced. You will not deceive me again. Luke's instinct screamed at him to run, but he couldn't. If he fled, Windu would remain trapped in his delusions, forever lost to his rage. Luke had to end this. Gritting his teeth, he changed his stance. If defense wouldn't work, he had to fight. Their blades met once more, the jungle flickering with every impact. Luke fought with all his strength, tapping into his training, his instincts, his connection to the Force. He wasn't fighting to kill, He was fighting to survive, to break through to Windu's mind. He parried a vicious thrust and countered with a precise strike, only for Windu to twist around him, moving like a phantom. Luke felt a searing pain as the tip of Windu's lightsaber grazed his shoulder. He grunted, staggering back, his robes smoking. But he refused to fall. He struck back harder. For every attack Windu threw, Luke countered. For every brutal strike, Luke found a way to endure. But Luke could see it, the cracks forming in Windu's relentless assault. The old Jedi was fading. His strikes were still powerful, still deadly, but his breathing was ragged. His exhaustion was beginning to show. Luke had been conserving his energy. Windu had not. The moment of weakness came in a flash. Windu overextended, bringing his saber down with an overhead slash. Too slow. Luke stepped in. With one swift motion, he knocked Windu's blade aside, spun behind him, and struck the back of his knee. The aged Jedi collapsed to the ground. His saber fell from his grasp, hissing as it landed in the dirt. For a moment, there was silence. Luke stood over him, his green lightsaber glowing against the night. Mace Windu was defeated. Windu panted heavily, his hands trembling as they pressed into the damp earth beneath him. His whole body ached, his limbs weak after the ferocity of the duel. He had given everything, every ounce of hatred, every shred of strength, and yet he had failed. He looked up, his vision hazy, his breath ragged. Luke stood over him, calm, composed, his green blade humming in the silence. For the first time in years, Windu truly saw the man before him. Not Anakin Skywalker, not a Sith, a Jedi. A wave of shame and regret crashed over him like a tidal wave. His rage, his hatred. What had he done? No, Windu whispered, barely able to form words. It can't be. Luke hesitated, but did not lower his blade. Master Windu, it's over. The words cut deeper than any lightsaber wound. Windu's vision blurred as the weight of his actions pressed upon him. For so long he had nurtured his hatred, clung to his suffering like a lifeline. He had convinced himself that he alone had survived for a reason, to bring vengeance upon the Sith, to finish what the Jedi could not. But that was a lie. The war was over. Palpatine was dead. The Empire was gone. And yet, he had still allowed himself to be consumed by darkness. His fingers curled weakly into fists. All these years, my mind has not been my own. His body shook. I failed the Jedi. I failed the Republic. And now? His voice cracked. I nearly killed you. Luke saw it, the truth finally breaking through. The anger was gone. In its place was something else entirely. Pain. A sorrow so deep it felt unbearable. Luke took a slow step forward and finally deactivated his lightsaber. You didn't kill me, Master Windu, he said softly. You're still here. That means something. Windu squeezed his eyes shut. He had spent decades drowning in his own fury, his own ghosts. And yet, this boy, this Jedi, had shown him mercy. Slowly, painfully, he lowered his head. I am sorry. Luke nodded, his expression one of quiet understanding. Rest now, Master Windu. I'll watch over you. I promise. Mace Windu closed his eyes. For the first time in decades, he let out a breath that was not filled with rage. For the first time since the fall of the Jedi, he felt something he had forgotten. Hope. What if Luke Skywalker had rebuilt the Jedi Order right after Return of the Jedi? The second Death Star was destroyed. The Emperor was dead. The Sith were no more. Across the galaxy, the Empire crumbled, its remnants retreating to the shadows as the New Republic rose from the ashes of war. But as the celebrations spread across the stars, one man remained restless. Luke Skywalker stood atop a mountain on Endor, gazing at the night sky. The Force swirled around him, whispering in his mind. The voices of the past, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Yoda, and Anakin Skywalker. You must pass on what you have learned. For so long he had been a student, learning from the last remnants of the Jedi. But now, with the war over, there was only one path forward. The Jedi had to rise again. Not the same rigid, dogmatic Jedi of old. A new order. And so, instead of searching for long-lost secrets, Luke Skywalker made his fateful choice. He would rebuild the Jedi, here and now. Word spread quickly. The Jedi were returning. Across the galaxy, those who had survived the Purge emerged from the shadows. They had lived in exile for years, haunted by the past, afraid to reveal themselves. But now, Luke Skywalker, the man who had defeated Darth Vader, was calling them back. Among those who answered were Cal Kestis, Oppo Rancisis, and Quinlan Vos. They, together, formed the foundation of the new Jedi Order. But there was one problem. None of them were truly teachers. They were warriors now. Survivors. And yet, despite their uncertainty, the Order began to grow. Across the Outer Rim, they found 4 sensitive children, some lost, some orphaned by war, others in hiding since the Purge. A new generation of Jedi. And yet, Luke felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on him. Was he truly ready for this? Ahsoka Tano had remained in the shadows for years, never claiming the title of Jedi. But when she had heard rumours of a new order, she had to see it for herself. She arrived at the growing temple, an old ruin rebuilt with hope. The sight of the younglings training brought a warmth to her heart. But when she saw Luke at the centre of it all, leading like a grand master, something felt wrong. She approached him alone that night. Luke, you're not ready for this. He frowned. The Jedi need to return, Ahsoka. They do. But you're still learning yourself. You're not a teacher. You're not ready yet. Luke sighed, running a hand through his hair. I can't afford to wait. The galaxy needs the Jedi now. We have the survivors. We have the students. If we wait too long... You are risking repeating the same mistakes of the past, Ahsoka interrupted. Luke hesitated. Ahsoka softened. You're trying to do something new. Something better. I respect that. But how can you lead an order when you're still searching for who you are? Luke looked down. He had no answer. And yet, the order continued to grow. It happened in the dead of the night. A storm raged over the temple, rain hammering against the stone walls. Luke awoke with a start. The Force screamed in warning, and then the explosions began. The temple shook, fire consuming the walls as shadows moved through the night. Figures cloaked in darkness descended upon the students. Screams echoed. Lightsabers ignited. The Jedi fought back, but their enemy was unlike anything they had ever faced. A figure stepped through the flames, tall, cloaked in darkness, His presence was suffocating. A deep, guttural voice filled the air. Your order ends before it even began. Snoke. The Jedi Masters rushed to meet him. Oppo Rancisis struck first, his green blade moving in a defensive arc. Snoke barely moved. A flick of his wrist sent the Jedi Master flying backward, crashing into the temple walls. Quinlan Vos and Cal Kestis attacked next, moving as one. Snoke caught their blades mid-air, and then he broke them. The shattering sound of kyber crystals screamed through the Force. Luke arrived just in time to see his fellow Jedi fall. Oppo Rancisis lay motionless, his body twisted at an unnatural angle. Quinlan Vos gasped for breath, a gaping wound in his chest. Cal Kestis, barely conscious, reached out, only to be silenced. The younglings cried out in terror as Snoke's forces dragged them away into the darkness. Luke could only watch as his dream turned to ash. His temple burned, his Jedi lay dead, and Snoke turned to face him. I will break you, Skywalker. Snoke's power was beyond anything Luke had faced. His lightsaber strikes were effortless, precise, monstrous. Luke fought with everything he had, drawing on the Force, reaching into its depths for strength. But Snoke was beyond him. A brutal strike to his ribs sent Luke to his knees. A backhanded blow shattered his nose. A final strike across his shoulder sent him crashing to the temple floor. Snoke loomed over him, his disfigured face twisted into a cruel grin. Pathetic, he spat. You are not a Jedi. You are a child, playing with fire. Luke, barely conscious, reached for his lightsaber. Snoke kicked it away. You were never ready for this, Snoke whispered. Ahsoka Tano's starship descended through the smoke-filled skies of the ruined Jedi Temple. The flames cast eerie shadows, illuminating devastation. Her heart clenched as she approached. The scent of burning flesh was thick in the air. The temple was gone. And amidst the carnage, a lone figure sat on his knees, his back turned to her. Luke Skywalker. His Jedi robes were torn, stained with blood, his own and others. Before him, the lifeless bodies of Quinlan Vos, Oppo Rancisis, and younglings lay still, their bodies illuminated by the dying embers of the temple. He did not move, did not acknowledge her approach. Ahsoka stepped forward, her voice barely above a whisper. Luke. Nothing. She stepped closer, her voice firmer. Luke. Still, he did not look at her. Ahsoka followed his gaze. His lightsaber was still ignited, the blade casting a ghostly light over the fallen. Tears stained his face, mixing with soot and blood. I failed them, Luke finally murmured, his voice hollow. Ahsoka knelt beside him. Who did this? Snoke. Luke's hands clenched into fists. He took the children. The silence between them stretched, filled only by the crackling flames and distant echoes of the massacre. Luke looked down at his lightsaber. I wasn't strong enough. Ahsoka reached forward, placing a hand on his shoulder. We mourn later. Her voice was firm, but not unkind. Right now, we find those kids. Luke did not move. Ahsoka grabbed his arm. Get up, Luke. He turned to her, his eyes lifeless, distant. Get up, she repeated, her voice leaving no room for refusal. And finally, Luke Skywalker rose to his feet. The Jedi were not finished. Not yet. Snoke had fled into the unknown regions, vanishing into the darkness from which he had come. But Luke and Ahsoka pursued without hesitation. Every lead, every whisper, every tremor in the Force. It all led them deeper into the void, until they found him. A desolate world, a forgotten place of shadows. Snoke had taken the children to a hidden fortress, far from the reach of the New Republic, far from hope. Luke and Ahsoka approached under cover of night. Through the Force they could feel them, the frightened younglings, trapped within cold metal walls. Luke's hands tightened around his lightsaber. Ahsoka could feel it, his anger, his guilt, festering like an open wound. "Luke," she warned. "I know," he muttered, but the fury in his voice told her otherwise. The battle began with fire. The fortress erupted into chaos as Luke and Ahsoka cut their way through Snoke's forces. Stormtroopers fell like wheat before a scythe. Blaster bolts were deflected effortlessly, thrown back with deadly precision. Luke fought with unmatched intensity, his saber movements faster, sharper, more aggressive than Ahsoka had ever seen. They reached the final chamber, and there he stood, Snoke, and behind him, the children, huddled in fear. "Skywalker." Snoke's voice was like venom. "Come to fail them again?" Something inside Luke snapped. With a roar of rage, he attacked. Luke was faster this time, more precise, more ruthless. Snoke barely had time to react before Luke's lightsaber slammed against his own, sending him stumbling backward. He did not fight like a Jedi. He fought like something else. Snoke countered with a surge of dark energy, sending Luke crashing through the stone walls. But Luke was already back on his feet. He charged again, his strikes relentless, fueled by fury, embracing the darkness that was festering within him. For every death, for every child stolen, for the temple, for his fallen Jedi, he would end Snoke. Blow after blow, he overpowered his foe, battering him down, shattering his defenses. And then, with one final strike, Snoke fell to his knees. Luke stood over him, his chest heaving. His saber hovered just above Snoke's throat. It would take one motion, one stroke, and justice would be served. Snoke looked up at him, smiling through bloodied teeth. "Yes, strike me down, Jedi." Luke's grip tightened. The rage within him boiled over. He wanted this. He deserved this. He needed this. One more strike. One more blow. And then... "Luke!" Ahsoka's voice pierced the darkness. Luke froze. His lightsaber trembled in his grip. He could hear her voice, steady, unyielding. "This isn't you." Luke's breath hitched. His mind cleared. The rage sank, replaced by something else. Horror. He saw himself as he was, standing over a defeated enemy, consumed by fury. This was the path his father had walked. This was the path he had sworn never to follow. His saber deactivated with a hiss. He stepped back. No. His voice was soft but resolute. "I won't become this." Snoke laughed. Weak. And then, with his final strength, he lashed out. A bolt of crackling energy surged toward Luke. But it never reached him. Ahsoka had moved first. Her white blade slashed through Snoke's chest. His laughter died in his throat. And as the darkness left him, Snoke fell. The children were safe. The nightmare was over. But as Luke and Ahsoka stood outside the ruined fortress, watching the twin moons rise, Luke felt empty. I wasn't ready. His voice was hoarse. I thought I could rebuild the Order. I thought I could lead them. But I failed. Ahsoka sighed, crossing her arms. Maybe you weren't ready. Luke looked up at her. But neither am I, she admitted. Neither is anyone. But those kids, they have nowhere else to go. They can't train themselves. Luke exhaled, running a hand through his sweat-soaked hair. Ahsoka placed a hand on his shoulder. We will learn together, Luke. Her voice was gentle but firm. We build together. Luke stared at the horizon for a long time. Then slowly he nodded. Together. And with that, the Jedi would rise again. Not as they were, not as they had been, but as they were meant to be. The beginning was not over. It had just begun. What if Luke Skywalker had discovered the Sith Eternal on Exegol? The rebellion's victory at Endor had been decisive. The Empire was shattered, its remnants scattered across the galaxy like embers from a dying fire. But Luke Skywalker knew that the darkness was not yet vanquished. Legend spoke of a hidden world, a place where the Sith had gathered in secret, beyond the reach of history itself. The whispers of Exegol had haunted him ever since he encountered Vader's spirit, a moment that should have brought him peace, but instead left him with questions. It wasn't enough that the Emperor had fallen. The Sith had been destroyed before, and yet they always returned. If true balance was to be restored, he needed to ensure they could never rise again. And so, Luke set off, alone. His search led him to the ruins of Mustafar, where he uncovered an ancient device, an obsidian pyramid, humming with raw power, a Sith wayfinder. With it, he charted a path through the unknown regions, navigating the treacherous, shifting corridors of the galaxy's most secretive abyss. A storm of crimson lightning crackled in the void as he emerged from hyperspace. Before him, stretched a world that defied all reason. A darkened sky, towering spires of black stone, and a massive citadel that pulsed with an unseen, malevolent energy. Luke Skywalker had found Exegol, and Exegol was waiting for him. The ruined cathedral of the Sith loomed over him as Luke stepped forward. The air was thick with the weight of ancient power, oppressive and suffocating. The chamber was vast, lined with towering statues of a long-forgotten Sith Lords. At its centre, a grotesque throne of stone and metal loomed, and seated upon it, a husk, the withered remains of Emperor Palpatine. His fingers, little more than skeletal claws, twitched as he turned his ruined, sunken gaze toward Luke. His mouth barely moved as he spoke, yet his words echoed across the chamber like the voice of the dead. You have come at last. Luke tightened his grip on his lightsaber, its emerald glow illuminating the darkness. You're a ghost, a remnant of a failed empire. Your time is over. Palpatine's ruined lips curled into something resembling a smile. Is it? Suddenly, the chamber shook. Dark energy swirled around the throne, the shadows themselves writhing as an unseen force began to pulse through the air. You are here because you know the truth, Skywalker. Luke stepped forward, ignoring the creeping unease that clawed at the edge of his mind. The Sith die today. Then strike me down, Palpatine rasped, spreading his arms. Do what your father could not. Fulfill your destiny. Luke hesitated. His instincts screamed that this was wrong. But he had come all this way. The Jedi had faltered once before, allowing Palpatine to rise. He would not make that same mistake. His grip tightened. He lunged. The emerald blade slashed downward. The moment he struck Palpatine's form, the shadows collapsed inward. A horrific, chilling wail erupted as something unseen latched onto him. Luke staggered back, his mind assaulted by 1,000 voices. Screaming, laughing, hissing. A tide of dark energy surged into him. His breath caught, his vision swam, and as he collapsed to his knees, a single, terrible realization sank into his mind. He had made a mistake. Luke staggered as he emerged from his starfighter, onto the polished Durasteel landing pad of Chandrila, the heart of the New Republic. The grand towers of the Senate District stretched high above him, bathed in golden hues of sunset. He should have felt at peace returning home. Instead, a storm chuffed within him. His very presence felt different. The Force was no longer the calm stream he had known, but a turbulent ocean, waves of power crashing against his senses. The whispers of the Sith still echoed in his mind, faint, elusive, but persistent. They do not see your strength. They do not understand. They will bow. He clenched his fists, pushing the voices away. The New Republic had to know what he had done. He had ended Palpatine. Forever. Inside the Senate chamber, Mon Mothma and the gathered officials turned as Luke entered. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. This was Skywalker, the hero of Endor, the last Jedi. He was revered, respected. Yet as he walked forward, his presence commanded something beyond respect. It demanded obedience. He stood before them, his voice steady, but laced with something new, something colder. The Emperor is dead. His followers are scattered. The Sith are no more. A moment of silence. Then applause. Senators stood, clapping, cheering his name. But to Luke, it wasn't enough. Where was the gratitude? Where was the reverence he deserved for ensuring peace? He felt it. The subtle shift within him. The resentment. The anger. And he embraced it. Luke began to move in the shadows. He whispered to senators, planting the seeds of doubt. He spread rumors of weakness in the Republic's leadership. The warlords of the Outer Rim still raided freely. Remnants of the Empire still operated unchecked. And the Republic was fractured. They cannot protect you. They cannot lead you. But I can. One by one, they listened. Mon Mothma saw it happening. Luke's influence growing. She confronted him in private. I know what you're doing, Luke. He turned to her, his expression unreadable. Then you should step aside, Mon. The Republic will not be ruled by fear. No, he agreed. It will be ruled by strength. Days later, a senator proposed a vote of no confidence in Mon Mothma. The majority sided with Skywalker, and the Jedi Master became Emperor. His first act? A silent purge. Those who opposed him, those who spoke against him, vanished. Leia Organa confronted him, furious. This isn't you, Luke. You're turning into what we fought against. But his gaze was empty, his voice calm. You've let your emotions blind you, Leia. I cannot allow weakness in my government. Weakness? She repeated, Horrified, you are banished. Leia fled, and in the shadows, a new resistance was born. Luke knew of it. He allowed it, until the moment came to crush it. Luke stood within the towering citadel on Coruscant, the seat of his growing empire. The Jedi Temple, once a place of peace and learning, had been repurposed into his fortress. From here, he ruled the galaxy, his influence stretching into every corner of the stars. Yet despite his power, a single threat remained: Leia. She had gone into hiding after her exile, gathering the scattered remnants of the Republic into a rebellion against him. She was careful, moving in secrecy, avoiding direct conflict, but Luke knew she would not stop. She would fight him to the bitter end. And so, he devised a solution. Not war, not conquest, something more devastating. He would take from her the one thing she could never live without: her son. Ben Solo was 15 when the shadows came for him. One moment, he was training in the hidden sanctuary of his mother's resistance. The next, masked figures struck, swift and silent, cutting down his protectors and dragging him aboard a waiting shuttle. He fought, screamed for his mother, but it was already too late. He was taken. Leia led a desperate chase, her fleet scouring the galaxy for him. But she found only silence. Then, a single transmission, a grainy recording. Ben Solo, his face bloodied, standing before his uncle. "Mother," his voice trembled, eyes searching the hollow recorder. "I'm alive, but you'll never find me." The recording flickered, and Luke's face replaced Ben's. "You have lost." His voice was cold. "Turn yourself in, or you will never see him again." Leia collapsed to her knees. Han gripped her. His jaw clenched in fury. But they both knew this was not a battle they could win. Not against Luke Skywalker. Ben spent years within his uncle's grasp. At first, he resisted. He called out to the light, to his mother. But Luke was relentless. He stripped him of identity, of purpose. "The Jedi made you weak. Your mother abandoned you. Only I can make you strong." And slowly, Ben Solo faded. In his place, a new warrior was forged, a disciple of the dark, a knight of his uncle's empire, a new name: Kylo Ren. Years passed. The resistance dwindled, hunted to near extinction. Leia had one last stronghold hidden in the Outer Rim, and Luke had found it. He did not send an army. He sent one man: Kylo Ren, the fallen son. His command was simple: bring them to their knees. The battle was swift. Kylo cut through the rebels without hesitation. The remaining fleet attempted to flee, but the skies were blockaded. Leia and Han stood at the heart of it all, watching their son fight for the enemy. "Ben!" Leia's voice rang out across the battlefield. "Please, stop this!" Kylo hesitated for just a second, but then Luke arrived, and the hesitation vanished. Luke walked through the wreckage unopposed. The resistance was shattered, their leaders surrounded. Leia, Han, Chewbacca, the last remnants of their rebellion, powerless. She looked up at him, defiant even in the face of death. "You've become a monster." Luke's expression didn't change. "I am the only hope for this galaxy. His lightsaber ignited. Han moved first, drawing his blaster, but he never got the chance to fire. Kylo struck his father down. Leia screamed. She lunged forward, reaching for her son. Kylo hesitated once more, and in that moment of weakness, Luke acted. A single stroke. The light faded from Leia's eyes. She collapsed, lifeless beside Han, and Kylo Ren finally broke. His master stood over the bodies of his parents, his voice filled with authority. This was necessary. But Kylo remained silent. The resistance was gone. Leia Organa and Han Solo dead. Luke Skywalker had no more enemies. The New Republic had long since fallen under his control. Its Senate, now a mere puppet council, each senator loyal to him or killed. The military, once fractured, had been reforged into his personal legion. The Jedi were extinct, their last embers crushed beneath his heel, and his apprentice, Kylo Ren, was fully dark. But Luke knew this was only the beginning. There was still the unknown regions, and that had to be conquered. For years, Ahsoka Tano had wandered the distant edges of the galaxy. She had spent her time searching for answers, for hope, for a way to stop the darkness that had engulfed the galaxy. But the moment she felt Leia's death, she knew time had run out. She had to act, but she could not do it alone. There was one final hope. A lost Jedi, a warrior who had once vanished into the void, beyond the reach of the Empire. Ezra Bridger. Ahsoka travelled to the distant world of Peridia, where Ezra had been stranded alongside Grand Admiral Thrawn. She found him there, older, hardened by years of isolation. But still, he was Ezra, still a Jedi. She told him everything. About Luke Skywalker and how he had fallen, how he had killed his sister Leia, how he had become a new Emperor. Ezra's hands clenched into fists. We have to stop him. But Ahsoka knew Jedi could not win this war. They needed something else. They needed a strategist. And so, they turned to Thrawn. Thrawn listened to Ahsoka's words in silence. He was no fool. He had studied the Empire, the Republic, the Jedi. He had seen Palpatine's rise, heard of his fall, and he understood one thing above all. Luke Skywalker was worse than the Emperor. Palpatine had ruled through fear and deception. Luke ruled through power, unchecked, unchallenged, and it was only a matter of time before his final empire expanded into the unknown regions. The Chiss ascendancy, Thrawn's people, would not be safe. So Thrawn made a decision. We will stop him, but it would not be through brute force. No army in the galaxy could face Luke Skywalker in direct battle. It would have to be strategy, precision, the perfect trap, and Thrawn knew exactly how to do it. With Thrawn's knowledge of tactics, Ahsoka's determination, and Ezra's Jedi power, the war began. Rebel cells hidden across the galaxy rose up once more, striking at the edges of Luke's empire, drawing his attention. But this was only a distraction. The real plan was far more ambitious. Luke had always believed himself untouchable. Thrawn would prove otherwise. The trap was laid in the deep void beyond the known galaxy. A fleet, a false armada, seemingly threatening his rule. Luke took the bait. He arrived personally, bringing Kylo Ren and his most elite forces to crush this oncoming force. And that was when Thrawn sprang the trap. Mines detonated, ion cannons fired, gravity wells pulled Luke's fleet into the abyss. For the first time since his reign began, Luke was vulnerable. But the trap was not enough, because they had all underestimated one thing: how powerful Luke had become. The battle was chaos. Ezra and Ahsoka led the charge, their lightsabers flashing against Luke's most elite warriors. Thrawn's strategy outmaneuvered the Empire at every turn, cutting off supply lines, forcing Luke's forces into retreat. But then Luke himself entered the battlefield, and everything changed. The Emperor did not command from the safety of a throne. He led the battle himself, and he was unstoppable. Ships crumbled under his will. Storms of lightning rained from his hands. The Force bent to him, obeyed him, unleashed upon his enemies in ways no Sith or Jedi had ever done before. He was no longer just a warrior. He was the dark side incarnate. Ahsoka faced him first. She fought with everything she had, her twin sabers flashing, her agility keeping her just out of reach. But Luke was beyond anything she had ever seen. His strikes were faster. His power was limitless. He overwhelmed her defenses, shattering her weapons, breaking her body. She fell to her knees, gasping for breath. Luke stood over her, his blue eyes dark with the power within him. "You should have stayed hidden, Tano." With a single strike, Ahsoka Tano, the last apprentice of Anakin Skywalker, was gone. Ezra screamed in fury, but he was next. Ezra fought with pure rage. Lightning clashed against his saber, his strength fueled by desperation, by the loss of Ahsoka, by everything that had been stolen from him. But Luke was too strong. With a single brutal strike, he cut Ezra down. The last of the Jedi was dead. Thrawn's fleet began to collapse. One by one, his strategies unraveled, because no strategy could prepare for Luke Skywalker's wrath. The war was over. Thrawn was captured, dragged before his Emperor. Luke looked down at him, smiling. "You planned well. You almost won." Thrawn, ever calm, met his gaze. "Almost." Luke's smile grew. "I could use a mind like yours." And so, he did not kill him. He took Thrawn prisoner, and the galaxy entered a new era of darkness. Emperor Skywalker ruled with an iron fist. There were no Jedi left, no rebellion, no hope. Only his empire, forever. What if Luke Skywalker had been raised by his father, Anakin Skywalker? Mustafar burned. Rivers of molten fire split the landscape like open wounds, spewing plumes of ash into a suffocating sky. The heat was oppressive, a physical weight pressing down on the metal platform where Padme Amidala stood, trembling. Her hands clutched her swollen belly as she gazed at the man before her. Not the man she had once loved, but something twisted, something broken. Anakin Skywalker, her husband, stood at the edge of the landing pad, his dark cloak billowing in the scalding wind. His eyes, once warm and full of light, were now consumed by the eerie yellow of the Sith. But he was still there. She had to believe that. "Anakin," she pleaded, taking a cautious step forward. "Please, come away with me. This isn't you. This isn't who you are." Anakin turned his head slightly, his expression unreadable. "Who I am?" he echoed. His voice was rough, cracked from the heat and his own internal war. "I am what I was meant to be. I finally brought peace, Padme. Don't you see?" She shook her head, tears brimming in her eyes. "Killing the Jedi, killing children. This isn't peace, Anakin. It's terror." He flinched. Something flickered behind his corrupted gaze. Doubt. Regret. The slightest remnant of the man she knew. "I did what I had to do," he said. But it wasn't as certain as before. Padme seized the moment, stepping closer. "You don't have to do this anymore. We can leave. Together. You, me, our child." She hesitated, then corrected herself. "Our children." Anakin's head snapped up. His lips parted slightly. "Children?" Padme smiled through her tears. "Yes, Anakin. We're having twins." Something inside him cracked. His breath hitched. His gloved hand twitched at his side. The rage that had been coursing through him, feeding the dark side, fueling his every action, shuddered and faltered. Anakin's jaw tensed. His breathing became erratic. The darkness clawed at him, screamed at him to strike her down, to destroy all weakness, to prove his loyalty to his new master. But then, a whisper, a memory. "You're going to be a father, Annie. I love you." Anakin staggered back, his lightsaber deactivating. The darkness screamed. It lashed out, clawing at his mind, trying to drag him back. But Anakin, though broken, though lost, had made his choice. Padme gasped as he collapsed to his knees, his entire body shaking. She rushed forward, catching his face in her hands. His skin was burning hot, his breath ragged. "Padme," his voice cracked. His eyes, no longer Sith yellow, but not entirely blue either, searched hers. I don't know if I can ever go back." "You don't have to do it alone," she whispered. And for the first time in what felt like forever, Anakin Skywalker closed his eyes and let himself fall. Not into the dark, not into the light, but into the arms of the woman who had never stopped believing in him. From the shadows of Naboo's starfighter's ramp, unseen and silent, Obi-Wan Kenobi watched, his heart heavy. He should strike Anakin down. End this now. But Padme had done what he doubted he could. She had reached him, and for that, Obi-Wan would give them a chance. The journey from Mustafar was silent. Anakin sat at the back of the Naboo cruiser, head bowed, his cybernetic hand clenched against his knee. He was not the same man who had boarded. The rage that had driven him, that had consumed him, was now a void, a hollow space within his soul. Padme sat beside him, never letting go of his hand, while R2-D2 chirped quietly, sensing the tension in the air. Obi-Wan remained hidden in the ship's lower compartments, unseen and unheard. He had made his choice. If Anakin truly sought redemption, Obi-Wan would not interfere, only watch. They arrived on Naboo under the cover of darkness. Anakin did not speak as the ship landed near the Great Lakes that stretched across the countryside. He followed Padme out, his steps slow, uncertain. The scent of the water, the soft hum of life all around him. It was a stark contrast to the fire and death he had left behind. Padme led him to a secluded estate on the lake, one she had used for private retreats during her time as queen. It was isolated, untouched by war. Here, they could disappear. Anakin stood at the balcony that night, staring at his reflection in the water. The scars of Mustafar marked his skin, but the deeper wounds lay beneath. He had turned his back on the Sith, but could he ever truly return to the Jedi? From the shadows, Obi-Wan watched him from a distance, his presence carefully concealed. He did not trust Anakin, not yet, but for Padme's sake, for the children she carried, he would remain on Naboo, hidden, ensuring that Anakin never left this place again. Months passed. When Luke and Leia were born, Anakin was at Padme's side. The sight of his children, his son and daughter, was overwhelming. He held them with reverence, with a fragile, uncertain love. Padme smiled weakly from her bed, exhausted but happy. "They're beautiful, aren't they?" Anakin nodded, but a shadow passed over his face. Could he ever be worthy of them? He had once dreamed of a galaxy where his family would rule, where power would protect them, but that dream had died on Mustafar. Now, all he wanted was for them to be safe. The galaxy believed Darth Vader had perished on Mustafar. The Emperor never searched for him, assuming his apprentice was dead. For years, Anakin Skywalker lived in exile, raising his children in the solitude of Naboo's lakeside estate. But the darkness within him never fully faded. Anakin trained Luke and Leia from an early age. He taught them discipline, how to harness the Force, how to wield a lightsaber with precision. But his lessons were not always kind. The rage still lurked beneath the surface. There were moments when his patience snapped, when his voice thundered, when his anger frightened even himself. When Luke was 8 years old, he made a mistake during training. He was supposed to parry an incoming strike, but hesitated, and Anakin, frustrated, lashed out harder than he intended. The blue blade grazed Luke's arm, leaving a searing burn. The boy screamed. Leia, standing nearby, flinched, terror flashing in her young eyes. Anakin's fury vanished instantly. He stared at the wound he had inflicted, his own hand trembling. Padme rushed forward, gathering Luke into her arms, her glare sharp but warning. "Anakin! You need to control yourself." Anakin stepped back, hands clenched. His breath was ragged. The ghosts of his past whispered in his ear. Sidious, Obi-Wan, the Jedi he had slaughtered. Padme saw the war in his eyes. She placed a gentle hand on his arm. "They are not your soldiers," she reminded him softly. "They are our children." Anakin closed his eyes. When he knelt before Luke, his voice was hoarse. "I'm sorry." Luke sniffled, nodding, but Leia said nothing. She simply watched her father with cold, unreadable eyes. The damage had been done. As the years passed, Luke and Leia grew apart. Luke admired his father, even after moments of anger, even after the mistakes. He saw the man who had overcome the darkness. He saw a warrior, a teacher, and a protector. He wanted to learn everything Anakin had to offer. Leia, however, saw something else. She remembered the fear, the times her father lost control, the feeling of weakness, of helplessness. She vowed never to feel that way again. At 18, she left Naboo. "I won't be trapped here," she told Luke before she departed. "I won't be weak. I'm going to find my own strength." Anakin did not stop her. He only watched as she boarded a ship and disappeared into the stars. Luke remained. By the time he was 22, he had become everything Anakin had hoped for. A warrior, strong in the Force. Powerful, yet disciplined. He had learned control. balance. But Leia, she had found something else entirely. Leia Skywalker had left Naboo behind, but the scars of her childhood never left her. For years, she wandered the galaxy searching for power. At first, she sought strength through knowledge, digging into ancient archives, uncovering lost Force traditions. But as time passed, her path led her deeper into the shadows. She encountered remnants of the Sith, cultists who whispered secrets of the dark side. She did not pledge herself to them. Leia was too independent, too strong-willed for that. But she had learned from them. She learned how to bend the Force to her will, how to harness her emotions rather than suppress them, how to become something more than just Anakin Skywalker's daughter. Her resentment of her father, the fear he had once instilled in her, became the fire that drove her forward. She would never be afraid again. By the time she was 22, she was no longer the girl who had left Naboo. She was something far more dangerous. Obi-Wan Kenobi had spent 2 decades watching Anakin from afar. He had remained hidden in the forests and cliffs of Naboo, never interfering, only observing. He had seen the man struggle, suffer, and grow. He had seen Anakin find balance, though the darkness never fully left him. But when whispers reached his ears, whispers of a powerful Force wielder rising in the Outer Rim, one who delved into forbidden knowledge, Obi-Wan knew. Leia. It had to be her. For the first time in 22 years, Obi-Wan revealed himself to Anakin. Anakin was in the courtyard of the estate, watching Luke practice with his lightsaber when he felt a presence. It was old, familiar, achingly familiar. He turned, and there he was, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Time had worn the Jedi Master's face, but his sharp eyes remained the same. He stood at the entrance of the courtyard, wrapped in a tattered cloak, his presence strong in the Force, but tempered with age. Anakin froze. Luke looked between them, sensing the weight of the moment, but saying nothing. For a long time, there was silence. Then Obi-Wan spoke. "It has been a long time, Anakin." Anakin took a slow breath. "I thought you were dead." Obi-Wan shook his head. "No, I stayed, as I always have, watching, waiting." Anakin responded, "It is good to see you, Master. But why are you revealing yourself to me now?" Obi-Wan's gaze flickered to Luke, then back to Anakin. "I could not remain hidden any longer. Leia has been found." At her name, Anakin's expression darkened. "Where is she?" Obi-Wan stepped forward. "She has strayed too far down a dangerous path. She seeks power, Anakin. A power that will consume her." Anakin's jaw tightened. "She left to find her own way. I did not stop her." "And now she is lost," Obi-Wan said softly. "We must bring her back, before it is too late." Anakin turned to Luke. His son's face was unreadable, but the tension in his stance spoke volumes. Luke's voice was steady. "I'll go." Anakin hesitated. Part of him wanted to go himself, to find Leia and bring her home. But then he looked at Padme, standing at the doorway, watching the scene unfold with quiet fear in her eyes. He could not leave her alone. Not again. He placed a hand on Luke's shoulder. "Find her. Bring her back." Luke nodded. Leia was not easy to find. For months, Luke and Obi-Wan chased rumors across the Outer Rim. They followed leads that led them to the desolate Sith ruins, to crime syndicates where Leia had once passed through, to worlds where the dark side still lingered. They fought mercenaries who served her, encountered Force users who had fallen under her influence. But Leia herself remained elusive, always one step ahead, as if she knew they were coming. Until the distress beacon, a signal from Naboo. Luke and Obi-Wan were in hyperspace when the alert came through. Leia had returned home. When Luke and Obi-Wan arrived at the estate, the world was silent. Too silent. The moment Luke stepped off the ship, a chill ran down his spine. The Force screamed at him in warning. The doors of the estate were open, the halls were dark, and in the centre of the courtyard, Anakin and Padme knelt, bound in restraints. Leia stood before them. She was dressed in flowing black robes, her dark hair tied back, her eyes burning with power. She radiated strength, more than Luke had ever felt from her before. Her expression was calm, but the storm in her presence was undeniable. Luke, she greeted, as if they were simply old friends meeting after years apart. Master Kenobi. Luke's voice was tight. Let them go. Leia smiled. Do you remember what it was like, brother, when we were children? When we were weak? She turned to Anakin. Do you remember, father? Anakin met her gaze, his expression unreadable. You never broke me, Leia continued. You tried to shape me, to make me strong. But I was always afraid. I swore I would never be afraid again. Her eyes darkened. You taught me strength, father, and now I will show you what I have become. She turned to Padme and ignited her lightsaber, a blade of burning crimson. Luke moved before he even realized it. But it was too late. Leia swung. Padme Amidala gasped as the red blade slashed across her torso. Anakin screamed. Her body fell. Leia turned and drove the blade into Anakin's chest. The world stood still. Luke froze. Obi-Wan inhaled sharply, his hands trembling. Anakin crumpled beside Padme, his breathing ragged. Leia stepped back, watching the life fade from his eyes. Blood pooled across the courtyard stones. Anakin's gaze flickered to Luke. His breaths were shallow, weak. His voice was barely a whisper. Save her, Luke, as I was once saved. And then, he was gone. Luke's heart shattered. Obi-Wan ignited his saber, his blade a blinding blue in the darkened sky. Luke followed. Leia smiled. Finally. The courtyard of the Naboo estate, once a place of peace and quiet, had become a battlefield. Rain began to fall, drumming against the stone as thunder rumbled in the distance. The air was heavy, thick with the scent of ozone and metallic tang of blood. Anakin Skywalker lay dead. Padme Amidala lay beside him, her lifeless eyes staring up at the storm-filled sky. And Leia Skywalker stood before them, her crimson blade humming in the darkness. Obi-Wan Kenobi moved first. His blue saber cut through the night, arcing toward Leia with precision of a master duelist. But Leia was fast, faster than his old mind expected. She twisted away, her blade deflecting his strike with unnatural ease. Luke barely had time to react before she turned on him. Their sabers clashed, red against blue, sparks flying as the energy of the blades crackled against the rain. Leia was relentless, each strike filled with power, her movements sharp, refined. She was not just strong, she was perfected. Every lesson she had ever learned, every technique she had ever mastered, she now wielded against them with terrifying efficiency. Luke fought to keep up, parrying her strikes as he moved in tandem with Obi-Wan. For the first time in his life, he understood what it meant to be truly outmatched. Leia was faster than him. She was stronger than him. And somewhere, deep inside, Luke realized she was holding back. Lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating the battlefield. Obi-Wan tried to force Leia back with a series of precise strikes, his years of experience guiding his hand. But Leia did not falter. Instead, she pushed forward. She slammed into Obi-Wan's guard, forcing his saber down, and with a single burst of raw power, she sent him hurtling backward. He crashed into a pillar with bone-crushing force, his saber flying from his hand as he slumped against the stone. Leia turned back to Luke. "You're hesitating," she whispered, her voice almost gentle. "I can feel it." Luke's hands trembled against the hilt of his saber. "Leia, this isn't who you are. You don't know who I am," she roared, her voice shaking with fury. She surged forward. Luke barely managed to block the onslaught of blows, his muscles screaming in protest as her crimson blade rained down upon him. He tried to reach her through the Force, tried to see inside her mind, to find the sister he had once known beneath the darkness. What he saw horrified him. He saw memories of her journey, of the dark places she had travelled, the beings she had learned from. He saw her standing over the corpses of her enemies, saw her commanding fleets in the Outer Rim, saw her kneeling before a figure wreathed in shadows, swearing herself to the power she now yielded. He saw what she had become, and she saw his fear. She smirked. "You were always weaker than me, Luke." And then she drove her blade forward. Luke twisted at the last second. The crimson saber grazed his ribs, burning through his tunic, sending a searing pain through his side. He staggered back, gasping. Leia didn't stop. She spun, her movements fluid, graceful, unstoppable. Luke barely managed to block her next strike. Then another. Then another. His defenses began to crumble. And in that moment, Leia saw her victory. She raised her hand, and the Force slammed into Luke like a crashing wave. He was lifted into the air and thrown back, his body colliding with the stone wall of the courtyard. His head cracked against the surface, the impact sending his vision spiraling into darkness. His lightsaber slipped from his grasp, clattering against the ground. Leia walked toward him, her crimson blade casting an eerie glow across her face. "You were never meant to be the one who carried our father's legacy," she murmured. She raised her saber, preparing to strike the final blow. Luke, dazed and bleeding, could not move. And then, Obi-Wan Kenobi stood between them. Obi-Wan Kenobi, bruised and battered, his breathing ragged, stood tall between Luke and Leia. His blue lightsaber was ignited, steady in his grip. His stance was strong, unyielding. Leia frowned. "Step aside, Kenobi." No. The word was simple, yet absolute. Leia narrowed her eyes. "You can't save him." "I will not let you fall any further." Leia smirked. "You can try." "You can try." For the first time since the Clone Wars, Obi-Wan Kenobi dueled with everything he had. His blade moved with the wisdom of a warrior who had survived generations of war. His strikes were measured, precise, every motion designed to control the battlefield, to keep Leia on the defensive. But Leia was not a Sith acolyte. She was not an inexperienced Dark Jedi. She was the daughter of Anakin Skywalker. She outmatched him. Blow for blow, strike for strike, she countered him with terrifying ease. Obi-Wan gritted his teeth, pouring everything into his movements. But he was old, and she was young. Leia feinted left, twisted, and plunged her saber into his abdomen. Obi-Wan gasped. His blue blade flickered, then vanished. Leia twisted the hilt once before pulling the saber free. Obi-Wan fell to his knees. He blinked up at her, his vision already dimming. Leia gazed down at him, her expression unreadable. "You fought well, Master Kenobi," she murmured. Then she raised her hand. With a single burst of Force energy, she sent his body crashing into the ruins. The last thing Obi-Wan saw was Luke, still on the ground, watching in horror. Then darkness. Luke felt something inside him snap. As Leia turned back to him, he rose. Not with fear, not with hesitation, with fire. His lightsaber flew to his hand. The blue blade ignited once more, burning with newfound strength. Leia raised an eyebrow. "You want to try again, brother?" Luke did not answer. He attacked. This time, he matched her. The Force surged through him, guiding his movements, sharpening his instincts. He had never fought like this before. For the first time, he was not fighting to save her. He was fighting to stop her. Their blades clashed with renewed intensity, neither giving an inch. The rain turned to a downpour, thunder crackling across the sky. They fought as equals, brother and sister, Skywalker against Skywalker. The storm raged overhead. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the ruins of the Naboo estate in the flashes of blinding white. Luke and Leia clashed, their lightsabers igniting the darkness with brilliant streaks of blue and crimson. Each strike was a declaration of war. Each movement was filled with the weight of their shared past, their broken destinies. Luke fought with everything he had, his muscles burning, his mind locked in battle. He could feel the Force surging through him, guiding his blade, pushing him forward. But Leia was something else entirely. She was faster than him, stronger than him. Her strikes were more precise, her movements more refined. She had spent years preparing for this moment, training under masters who had long been forgotten, learning secrets of the dark side that Luke had never even dreamed of. She was not just his sister anymore. She was his greatest enemy, the galaxy's biggest threat. Their battle carried them across the ruined courtyard, past the broken columns and shattered remnants of the life they once knew. Luke ducked beneath a deadly horizontal slash, rolling away as Leia's crimson blade cut clean through a marble statue. The stone collapsed behind him, but he had no time to look back. Leia was already on him. She pressed forward, her attacks merciless, her speed blinding. Luke's defense was crumbling, and he knew it. Luke blocked another vicious strike, but the impact sent him stumbling backward. His breath came in ragged gasps, his arms ached from the relentless barrage. Leia wasn't slowing down. She wasn't tiring. She was toying with him. "Come on, Luke," she whispered, her voice soft, almost mocking. "Where's that strength you were so proud of?" She attacked again, harder this time. Luke barely managed to block. Sparks flew as their sabers clashed, crackling with energy. Leia twisted her wrist, disengaging their blades before spinning into a downward strike. Luke couldn't stop it. The crimson blade tore into his shoulder. He cried out in pain, stumbling backward, clutching the smoking wound. His vision blurred for a moment, but the searing agony threatened to overwhelm him. Leia didn't stop. She kicked him hard in the chest. The force of the blow sent him flying. Luke crashed against the stone floor, rolling to a stop near the edge of the courtyard. His lightsaber fell from his grasp, the blue blade flickering before dying out. He tried to rise, tried to push himself back to his feet, but Leia was already standing over him. Her red blade hissed as she brought it to his throat. The rain dripped from the edges of her hood, her eyes burning like molten gold in the darkness. "This is where it ends," she murmured. Luke looked up at her, his breathing shallow, his vision swam. The pain in his shoulder was unbearable, his strength slipping away. But he wasn't afraid. He had known, deep down, that this moment would come. He just never thought it would be her. He swallowed hard. "If you kill me, Leia, you'll never come back." She hesitated. For the briefest moments her fingers tensed around the hilt of her saber. A flicker of conflict flashed through her expression. But then it was gone. Her grip tightened. Her stance hardened. "There's nothing to come back to," she whispered. A sudden shockwave tore through the courtyard. Leia was blasted backward, her body flying through the air before slamming into a broken column. She grunted in pain, rolling onto her hands and knees. Luke gasped, struggling to understand what had just happened. And then he felt it. A presence. Strong. Familiar. Ancient. His eyes widened as he turned toward the source. Obi-Wan Kenobi stood at the edge of the battlefield. His robes were intact, his body unharmed. But there was something different about him. His form glowed, faint and blue, shimmering like a figure out of a dream. He was a ghost, a luminous being, radiating with the energy of the Force itself. Luke's breath caught in his throat. "Master?" The old Jedi Master gave him a small, sad smile. "You are not alone, Luke." Then he turned to Leia. Her confidence wavered. Leia pushed herself to her feet, her crimson saber still ignited. She looked at Obi-Wan with a mixture of anger and something else. Something close to fear. "You're dead," she hissed. "I killed you." Obi-Wan tilted his head. "You cannot kill what is eternal." The word struck something deep inside her. For the first time, doubt crept into her mind. "You are lost, Leia, but it is not too late to return." "No," she snarled. "I am not lost." She charged, her crimson blade arced toward Obi-Wan's form, and passed straight through him. She spun back, eyes wide, confusion flickering across her face. Obi-Wan stood untouched, watching her with something close to sorrow. "You cannot fight me, Leia," he murmured. She screamed. Lightning crashed, illuminating the battlefield. She lunged at Luke instead, her movements fueled by desperation. But this time, Luke was ready. The Force surged through him. Leia was stopped mid-air, frozen in place. Her body trembled, her lightsaber shaking in her grip. Luke rose to his feet, his expression no longer filled with hesitation. The exhaustion from his limbs vanished. He could feel it now, the clarity of the Force guiding his actions. Luke took a slow step forward. "Leia," he whispered, his voice heavy with sorrow. Her breath was ragged, her golden eyes locked onto his. She did not lower her blade. She could not, because deep down, she did not know how to surrender. Not anymore. And in that moment, Luke realized the terrible truth. His sister was too far gone, and if he did not stop her, no one would. Leia broke free of Luke's grasp, her saber whipping toward him in a final desperate attack. Luke's instincts took over. He did not think. He did not hesitate. His blue saber cut through the rain. Leia gasped. Her eyes went wide. She staggered, her crimson blade slipping from her grasp. A glowing blue blade was buried in her chest. Luke froze, his breath caught in his throat. Leia reached out, her fingers trembling, grasping weakly at his tunic. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Luke." Her legs gave out. She collapsed to the ground. The crimson in her eyes began to fade. And then, Leia Skywalker was gone. The rain had stopped. The storm had passed. Luke stood motionless in the courtyard, his lightsaber still ignited, its blue glow casting soft light on the lifeless body at his feet. Leia was gone. His sister, his last remaining family, was truly gone. The weight of it crushed him, heavier than anything he had ever endured. This was the end. He slowly fell to his knees beside her, his hands shaking, reaching out. He pressed his palm against her cooling cheek, brushing a strand of damp hair away from her face. She looked so peaceful now, as if, in death, she had finally been freed. A choked sob escaped his throat. "I'm so sorry, Leia," he whispered, his voice breaking. I tried to save you." But he had failed. He had failed her. The echoes of the battle still lingered in the air, but the world around him was eerily silent now. The only sound was the distant, mournful howl of the wind through the ruins. He had thought he would feel relief when it was over, that in some twisted way this would bring balance. But there was no balance, only emptiness. Drop the scenario you would like to see in the comments, and I will pick one every week for Fan Friday. I hope you enjoyed this video. See you in the next one.